Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and I'm back. And we are talking about a military development in the Middle East that was unexpected and surprising. Yesterday, the New York Times reported that Iranian counterattacks, missile and drone attacks, have caused so much damage to all 13 of American bases in the region that they have become uninhabitable. And I'm going to talk to you about it. As you can see, there are these reports that say that this is from the New Republic, that US troops abandoned military bases amid Iran strikes. So these are bases in most of the Middle Eastern countries like Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, in Iraq. So these bases are there with about 50,000 American troops cumulatively in all of these bases. Some of these bases are where the US has been launching its attacks from on Iran. And the purpose of these bases were there to essentially protect this country primarily from Iran. Who else is threatening these countries, or they feel threatened of? It became very apparent when Israel attacked Qatar that having a US base in Qatar does not protect you from Israel, even though the Americans may promise that they are going to support, protect you. That is not really happening in that part. But Iran's missiles, ballistic missiles, drone attacks have caused sufficient damage to these bases that the United States has to withdraw many of its troops from those places. They have moved into hotels. It is kind of bizarre. I'm going to actually walk you through an article from the New York Times that came out yesterday, which talked about this in much detail. And I will also talk to you about, and apparently that many of these troops have moved to Europe. So the U.S. presence. So it's a bit confusing as to what's going on with the U.S. military. At one level, they are withdrawing troops from the bases, and some of them have moved to Europe. And then on another level, what they are doing is bringing in close to 10,000 new troops in the region. There are about 2,000 82nd Airborne paratroopers who are coming in there. There are already 3,000 to 5,000 Marines there, and more troops are coming in by the middle of. They're saying that by 15th of April, the United States probably will be ready to launch ground attacks with about 10,000 troops. What are they going to take with 10,000 troops? So right now there are two ideas floating around. One is that they will take that critical island called Karg Island. The argument is that Karg Island is very critical for Iran's exports in the region. 90% of Iranian exports come out of the Karg Island, and those 10,000 troops are sufficient enough to take care of it. It's a very small island, 8 square miles apparently, and you can see it. It is located here. This is the Strait of Hormuz. So this is where the Karg Island is, and if the US were to take this, they will do that by first taking the airport, and then they will take over this whole of island, and therefore Iran will not be able to export any, because 90% of its oil is exported from here. Most of the so-called dark fleet comes here. So this is one goal. The second goal, it seems, is that the United States will first clear out all Iran's naval capabilities. They claim that they have sank 60 of Iranian Navy ships. They will destroy Iran's missile capabilities, torpedo capabilities, and then these troops will then clean all the mines in the Strait of Hormuz, and then they will patrol regularly all the oil tankers which are going in and try to keep them safe. For how long will they continue to patrol? If there is no ceasefire, if there is no end to this war, Iran could continue to make cheap drones and then continue to attack those ships. And so that is one of the riskier and dangerous proposition. This is where America could potentially lose a lot of soldiers. So far, in 28 days of fighting, only 13 American soldiers have died. So there's not much hue and cry in the country at the moment, but still 13 people have died in this war. But over 300 American soldiers have also been injured, 10 of them very seriously. On the Israeli side, you have about 20 to 30 soldiers and civilians killed, and the same number in the Arab Gulf. On the Iranian side, obviously, the casualties are very high. Some estimates are about 2,000, 1,900 plus soldiers. A lot of them are civilians. 170 were school children. Israel and the United States have attacked hospitals and schools, and a lot of civilians have died. They say that of those close to 2,000 killed, over 1,000 of them are just civilians. And not only that, but over 30,000 people have been injured. So the number of injuries are very, very high, and we don't know to what extent and how serious those injuries are. But with the country's infrastructure getting destroyed steadily, it's going to be far more difficult. Every little problem will be magnified because of the destruction of the infrastructure. But I'm surprising that there are people who are covering this, and so. But I'm surprised that there's not so much chatter about what has happened to the U.S. Bases. So let me just share that article with you. So this is the article, and if you look at it, this is the New York Times article. It was published yesterday. It says Iran attacks force US troops to work remotely. So because the title of this article is so innocuous, in fact, while I was trying to make the thumbnail for this show, I wanted to say Iran destroys 13 US bases, forcing soldiers to work out of hotels. And both Google, Gemini, and ChatGPT refused to use that headline and make a thumbnail for me, saying that's not accurate. So suddenly, and then I tried to make saying the US destroys all of Iran's ballistic missile capability, and ChatGPT and Gemini have no problem making thumbnails with those titles, even though those are also inaccurate. Right now, there is a lot of intel which says that only 1/3 of Iran's missile and drone arsenal has been destroyed. 1/3 might be buried under all the debris, and so Iran still has about 1/3 of it, which would be anywhere between 600 to 1,000 ballistic missiles and unknown quantity of drones. But nevertheless, it was quite amusing to me to see that when we talk about US losses, we have to be very careful as to how we portray it. So this article, I thought I'll walk you through it. So I don't want people to accuse me saying that I'm saying things which, well, this article could be wrong entirely, right? But at least it's published in New York Times. This is the newspaper of record in the US. So this is what it says. Iran has severely damaged several American military bases in the Middle East. This is what they are saying. Iran has bombed US bases across the Middle East in retaliation. So now much of the land-based military is in a sense fighting the war while working remotely. So what has happened is because of these targets, the American troops to relocate to hotels and office spaces throughout the region. I mean, this is ridiculous. How can you move into hotels? It's like taking other members who are staying at the hotel, unless you take the entire hotel, booking the whole hotel. It's like taking, human shields, hiding behind civilian population. So if Iran attacks the hotel, Iran will be accused of targeting a civilian infrastructure, even though it's now packed with American soldiers who are attacking it from there. So now much of the land-based military is, in a sense, fighting the war while working remotely, with the exception of fighter pilots and crews. So there's a lot of talk about this. There were close to 40,000 US troops in the region when the war started. The Central Command has dispersed thousands of them, some to as far away as Europe, American military officials said, but many have remained in the Middle East, although not on their original bases. The result, according to current and former military officials, is a war that is much harder to prosecute. Yes, we have the ability to set up expedient operations centers, but you're absolutely going to lose capability, said Master Sergeant Wes J. Bryant, a retired special operations targeting specialist in the US. So it's like saying that how can we install, remote, all our, you can't just put all the equipment on the top of a hotel, for example. some of it is unwieldy. So this report is astounding. In Qatar, Iran struck Al Udeid Air Base. This is the biggest air base of the United States in the region, the regional headquarters of U.S. Central Command, damaging an early warning radar system. In Bahrain, a one-way Iranian attack drone struck communications in the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet. Even that has been shut down. So this whole idea that Iran has been hitting consistently and targeting, uh, uh, basically targeting U.S. military bases, and has been so successful, it should be shocking. It kind of undermines the claim that the United States has established clear domination. This talk about air dominance, fine, the US has air dominance, but the Iranians are also flying their missiles. They're not crawling on the ground. So the Iranian missiles are flying, Iranian drones are still flying and hitting targets. It seems that the Gulf countries are losing $500 million a day in tourism alone. So, for example, this war has lasted now for 27 days. 28th day of war is going on, or 29th now, because it's already late here. So in these 28, 29 days, it is clear that the Gulf countries have lost anywhere between 14 to $15 billion just in tourism. And of course, the biggest damage that has been done is to Bahrain as well as to Qatar. Qatar has lost, they say that it will take Qatar at least 3 to 5 years to rebuild and recover what they lost in this one strike by Iran at Ras Lafan, at their north field of their gas production. And the estimate is that perhaps they built it with over an investment of over $200 billion, and the damages are estimated by some at $30 billion. So billions of dollars are being lost in this war. And it is amazing. I just wanted to share this particular item because when I saw this news item yesterday in the newspaper, I was a bit surprised too, that how unprotected and unprepared the US has been for this war. And that continuously tells me that either the people who are in the Trump administrations are just basically stupid dorks, nincompoops, incompetent. I mean, if you look at Pete Hegseth and listen to him talk, you can clearly understand that he's incompetence personified. So yes, they have not prepared for this war, and they probably got dragged into it by the Israelis. It is becoming more and more apparent in the United States. Most of us can't talk about this directly because there's such a strong hold of the Israeli lobby on the American public sphere and American political conscience that most people are afraid to speak. I was recently in a panel at a university. I was the fifth speaker, and four professors spoke before me for about an hour each, for 15 minutes each, for a total of an hour. So by the time it was my turn, there had been about 1 hour of discussion about the war. And guess what? We spoke about for 1 hour about this war without mentioning Israel and its role in this, even though Netanyahu has been wanting this war for nearly 40 years. So it's amazing as to how scared to death Americans are of saying anything that is either critical of Israel or in disagreement with it, especially Democrats and liberals too. They are very, very scared. I just saw a video by the Senator Coons, the senior senator from Delaware. He used to be a regular on my show, but he now talks as if he's APAC, and so there's no point in bringing him on my show, because if I want that particular perspective, I would rather bring in the director of APAC or the Israeli ambassador himself, or even American ambassador Mike Huckabee, to say more eloquently and more clearly what Senator Coons says. But he did a 5-minute show on this war on Iran, and he didn't have even one sentence on Israel. It's fascinating as to how people can do all of this, anyway, thank you for watching Conversations. And if you are based in India or understand Urdu or Hindi, I'll be coming back in 15 minutes from now at 11 p.m. US time and 8:30 a.m. India time. And I'll be talking to you about something entirely different. Let me see if I can share the thumbnail of my next show. This next show is about how, while the bombs are falling in Iran, the damage it is causing to Indian economy is phenomenal. In India, the media seems to be simply obsessed with trying to protect Modi's image. Trump calls Modi, suddenly it's the biggest thing that has happened to India, as if he's the greatest, God knows what. So they are in the process of making a god out of Modi, and they are completely undermining India's national interests, and the quality of discussion in India about what is really going on is gone. So what I thought I will do in this show is, in the first 10-15 minutes, I will just show you some data, very simple charts about dollars, investments, about stocks, about oil, and then I will take your questions and answer. So it's going to be more of a question and answer session live with people, those who understand and speak Urdu and Hindi. So thank you for watching Conversations. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Like this video, press the bell icon, and do consider becoming a member of Conversations. That way you can support the channel. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Take care.